Welcome to the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast. We're continuing our coverage from the Greater Niagara Fishing and Outdoor Show. And right now joining us, we have Paul Powis, a captain from Erieau, Ontario. And you're fishing a bite that's something that I don't think a lot of people know about. Tell us about kind of what your program is out of Erieau.
Yeah, Chris. So Erieau is on the North Shore on the Canadian side out of Ontario. We're directly across from Cleveland, about 55 miles, and a little west of Pelee Island. And typically Erie's known for its walleye fishery, but we have a bonus catch there, which is the rainbows or steelhead, rainbow trout. And it's pretty good. So we can fish the same tackle, same spot, same everything. Rod goes off, it's a walleye, you put it back. The next one could be a steelhead. So there's some tweaks we make in our tackle to accommodate that. But generally we're just fishing, and we take both species because the rainbows fight like crazy and jump and pull, and the walleyes are really good to eat. So it's a double whammy, right?
Yeah, so a lot of fun. You never know what you're going to pull up. You said you make some changes to your tackle. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so one of the things we do, most of the trollers on the Great Lakes, be it Ontario, Huron, Erie, we're mostly trollers. And the advantage of that is you can cover a big body of water and moving constantly instead of just setting up on one spot. So most of these fish, the main forage, the bait fish will be either smelt or shad or whatever. So some guys will use a crankbait or a body bait as a shad or a smelt imitation. And the thing is, they can catch walleyes and they can catch trout. But a trout with a bait that has several sets of hooks, typically what happens is they get one set of hooks in their mouth and the other side is in their head, and they end up tangling everything. So to avoid that, because you have no control over what's going to bite your bait, we do mostly a spoon bite. So we'll run spoons off the downriggers, we'll run spoons off the dipsies, we'll run planer boards with spoons and jet divers, that sort of thing. So I pretty much shied away from the body baits just because you lose too much tackle, it's too much tangles, and a lot of downtime untangling puzzles versus fishing, and the spoons seem to alleviate that. So it's more of a spoon bite for us.
What brings these fish to your area? Are they there all the time? What's this bite like?
Well, the beauty of Erie, and as everyone knows, that the population of walleyes there is just explosive. So there's a couple factors that contribute to those fish being there. And one is it's deeper. The central basin of Lake Erie, it goes as deep as 80 feet. And if you're in the western end, it's a lot shallower, 17, 20 feet. So what happens is that water pours out of the Detroit River. It falls into there. It's a good spawning ground. Pelee Island, Colchester area, Leamington area, Wheatley area. But a lot of times that water warms up, and then when the water warms up, the bait doesn't like it, and the walleyes and rainbow trout will follow the bait. So the bait's looking for cooler, deeper water. That's when they show up in the central basin.
What is that forage base?
It changes. It used to be smelt all the time. And because I think because there's so many fish there and they're eating so much, the smelts kind of declined a little bit, but there's a good shad population, and they eat the gobies too. Like they're that ferocious that they have to eat. They'll eat whatever they have to offer. But I have seen in the last couple of years the smelt populations are down a bit. I know they're eating yellow perch as well. So you want to match your spoon to the size of the forage that the fish are eating on.
How are you setting up your gear when you're going after these guys?
Typically, unlike a bass fisherman that grabs a rod and a reel and casts it out and tries this technique and then tries another technique, as trollers, what we do to try to perfect that is we put a little everything out and see what works, and that tells you what doesn't work. So typically my spread would be a couple of riggers, and then I would run multiple dipsies. So I'd run a 1 dipsy on the inside, a 2, and a 3. I'd run 3 aside. So that's 8 rods. And the fishing has been that good the last 3 years that I can get away with 8 rods. But then if maybe things are off after a cold front or whatever, we'll put the boards out too, and I can run 5 on there. So up to an 18 rod spread if we're really trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And then as the fish in the box starts to fill, we'll start pulling rods and concentrate on areas. With the big planer board spread, we cover a lot of water in wide swaths, but turns take a quarter to a half a mile.
Yeah.
So a lot of times if I'm on just a certain bait ball with really active fish, I'll pull the boards in, just fish the dipsies in the rigger, and I can work tighter circles and stay on them like that.
What kind of depths are you fishing in when you're doing this?
Typically, and it's wind dependent and current dependent, and water temperature is key. So a lot of times earlier on in the year, we're closer to shore, but as the weather warms up and like late July, early August, when you're starting to get those, high 70s, low 80 water temperature, surface temperatures, you want to find that colder water for the bait. So generally 40 to 60 a lot of times, and then later on they just move up and down in the water column within that. So the temperature is important to dictate exactly where they are. And then you get a big strong north wind, it's going to push the warm water out and the cold water comes in, and vice versa. So there's a lot of current, there's a lot of variances in that temperature as well.
What's a day like out on the boat with you when you're doing something like this? For clients to come out there, what would they expect?
Typically, the clients show up, and I run 2 programs. I do a 7 to 1 or a 2 to 8. That's a half-day charter, and I do an all-day charter as well. For a lot of my corporate guys, they don't want to get up early and bring customers. Hey, you got to get up at 4 to drive to be somewhere for 7. So we just leave it wide open. We'll go when you get out there. Clients would bring, soft-soled shoes, hat, some sunscreen, something to drink, a little bit of food. Lately, a lot of my customers have changed their game plan. The fishing's been so good. They leave the food in the cooler in the car, and they eat when they're done because they're so busy when they're out there. It's been that good. And, there's kibitzing, and we do a lot of family stuff, a lot of corporate stuff, a lot of stags for guys getting married and that sort of thing. But the biggest thing is, the guys throw $5 down for the biggest fish, and it's kind of it's a private charter. Like, we don't mix groups, so it's you and your buddies, or you and mom and dad and aunts and uncles, and we get everything out there. So I even did a wedding party where it was all girls, and they had an absolute blast. The boys can do it, the girls can do it too. So they show up, and we go out and fish. I clean them for them when they're done, and the same walleyes that we're catching on Lake Erie are sold commercially, like through grocery stores and the rest. It's almost $20 a pound at home in Canada. So they're taking home good groceries too.
What's your season? What months are you running?
Recently retired the last couple of years. I used to make my charters around my schedule, how much time I could get off work. So now that I'm retired and I only fish, I concentrate July and August, which is when it's the warmest, the fishing's the best. I rent a place for a couple months and I move down there for the whole time. And 2 years ago, I went right into October. Last year, I had plans of going into October, and after Labor Day, the wind blew out of the east every stinking day for a month, and I finally decided it's not going to happen. So typically, I concentrate everybody July and August, and if I have some carryovers because of cancellation of weather, I would try to fit them in September, weather permitting, and the fish are still there. It's just a lot of times that big winds come up in the fall, and I had 21 days of perfect weather 2 years ago after Labor Day, and last year from Labor Day on, it blew every day. So typically we try to get the guys out mid-July to mid-August, and then we use carryover for the rest of the time.
You talked wind there. The place that you're based out of, that Erieau, it has some interesting land around it, and that you can kind of get back out of the wind when the wind's coming out of the west. Tell us about what you got going on.
Yeah, so where we're situated on the map, Rondo Bay is right beside us. So if you were to go around the point of pins at Rondo Bay, you can be in 60 feet of water and get out of that west to southwest wind, and you can get some protection from land. So a lot of times we'll just hug the shore and go right in the trough all the way down, get around the corner, and people are like, oh, the wind stopped. No, it's still there. We're just behind land to stop it. And we remind them on the way back, we call it the longest 3 miles of their life, because sometimes you get behind there and you don't realize how windy it really is until you come back around the point, and then you're taking them off the windshield and the roof. But it's relatively close to shore, but sometimes if it's really windy, we can still sneak a trip in there and go.
Yeah, you were telling me earlier about, with that windbreak there, you kind of have an advantage with getting out into that deep water quicker. And then the other thing you were saying is, a lot of times those bait fish, that the fish that you're targeting, they're stuck kind of in an eddy.
Yeah, and if you look at it on a map and the way the currents go, it actually goes down in there and it'll swirl. Like I've seen as high as 20-degree temperature difference around the point versus out in front of the harbor. So that acts as a sanctuary for that bait. And fish are well known to leave their preferred temperature to eat. So it's all about hunting for food. And if the food's in cold water around the point, that's where we're going to fish.
Is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to touch on?
No, it's a great fishery. A lot of people don't like trolling because they say it's boring and the rest of it. But, the best part of trolling is you cover a lot of water and you're not stagnant and stuck in one spot. Like I talked to some guys that ice fish and they go to one spot, and if those fish aren't right under your hut, you're not catching fish. If you're moving around and doing that, and that's how I think about trolling. And I do the other style of fishing, Detroit River and the rest of it. I don't guide for that. But I'm a natural troller. That's what I like doing. I can't cast very well, so that makes a difference too. But no, it's a really good fishery. It's a fun little town. There's a microbrewery there. There's some good restaurants, and dressing up means you wear your good flip-flops that don't smell like fish out for dinner. But it's good. It's fun. My kids have grown up there. It's been a really good ride for me over the last 30 years.
Captain Paul Powis, if somebody wants to book a trip with you, how do they get in touch with you?
They can find me at jpfish.com or find me email jpfish@rogers.com or give me a call. All my information's on the web. It's J&P Fishing Charters or Captain Paul Powis. You can find me. I'm pretty much everywhere on social. So
awesome. Thanks very much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.